This is the Horse Radio Network.
Greetings, everyone. Coach Jen here, and thanks for tuning in to Horse Tip Daily, episode 1375, brought to you today by Wintec Saddles. Today's tip is an excerpt from the Horses in the Morning show right here on Horse Radio Network, and this time show co-hosts Glenn and Jamie are joined by Farrier Steve Kraus from Cornell University Vet School, and they're going to have a little chat about something called Palmar angles. Don't know what they are? We're going to fix that. We're going to get right to our tip after we hear from our sponsors, Wintec Saddles. Available now from leading retailers throughout North America, the new and improved range from Wintec, the world's favorite synthetic saddle brand. Combining hard-wearing materials with best-in-class technology, the range of new and improved Wintec saddles now has something for every discipline, conformation, and budget. The new specialist conformation saddle models include the Wintec 2000 High Wither All-Purpose, Wintec 2000 Wide All-Purpose, and the Wintec Pro Wide Dressage. And that's not all. Improved comfort for you and your horse with super soft panels that mold in and around your horse's working muscles for a closer, more stable fit. Plus, the amazing new saddle flap that contours around your horse, channeling your thigh to improve contact. Head out to your local retailer and have a sit in one of the new and improved Wintec saddles, or visit them online at wintecsaddles, that's saddles plural, .us. wintecsaddles.us.
All right, let's get to our guest, of course, Farrier Steve Kraus of Cornell University.
We're going to talk about Palmar angles. What is a Palmar angle?
Okay, so the simple version is if we look at the side view of the horse standing alongside him, and if we're looking at the front limb, we're referring to the Palmar angle, and if we're looking at the hind limb, we're referring to the plantar angle. So we'll start with the front limb, okay? And as we look at the horse, or if we look at a radiograph of the horse of standing of the lower limb, we can see the coffin bone on a radiograph, and the line from the bottom of the coffin bone to the ground is the Palmar angle. Whereas the line that goes from the coronary band down the front of the hoof to the ground would be your dorsal angle or your hoof angle. Does that make sense?
Yes.
Okay. So it's actually more important to the horse on what the Palmar angle is. And when you think of Palmar, think of your palm going face down to the ground. Mm-hmm. And so your palm of your hand, the line between your hand and the ground, can either be parallel, you can raise it up to a positive angle, or you can lower it backwards to a negative angle. So that's another way to visualize it.
So why is the Palmar angle important?
Okay, so that gives us a true understanding, especially if we have an X-ray, and farriers have to develop X-ray eyes if they don't have quick access to a radiograph machine. But if you see a lot of radiographs of the side view, the lateral view of the horse, you develop a little sense of horses that have what their Palmar angle is, as opposed to it's very easy to determine what the hoof angle is because you could see, whether the horse is upright or low heel, long toe horse. You can put a hoof gauge on the front and get somewhat of a reading there, and that could be important for shoeing standardbred horses and so on. But the Palmar angle actually tells us what the orientation of the coffin bone is, and that has more of a direct link to upcoming soundness problems and things you can do to help that.
So can you see, just by being a layman on the side of the horse, can I walk to the side of my horse and be like, you know what? He does not have a good Palmar angle. Like, how could I see that from just being next to my horse?
That's really hard. You have to see a lot of horses and a lot of lateral radiographs. But if a horse has that very upright foot, let's say, it's likely, if you were to measure the front of the foot with a hoof gauge, And a horse that's very upright is above 55 degrees on that angle and probably approaching 60, like what we call a club foot. Most of those horses will have a very steep Palmar angle also, which is probably above 6 degrees from flat. So 6 to 10 degrees on that bottom hoof angle, that would correspond if the coffin bone was parallel to the front wall of the foot. Whereas a horse with a very long toe, low heel probably has a flat or negative Palmar angle. He's actually crushing backwards. So those horses lose a lot of digital cushion, which is very important to the soundness of the horse and how the hoof is nourished and so on. So, usually so that's the two extremes that you can probably easily see.
So
right
we've got it. I was going to say we got a club foot, which
range is harder to see.
So a club foot we would see because they're kind of like the angle is broken a little forward, and then a long toe, low heel, correct, the horse would be a little bit broke back in that angle and putting a little too much stress on its heel. Both of those are fairly common, especially I deal with a lot of off the track thoroughbreds. What are some of the
correct
ways to fix that? Because it can't be healthy for what's inside the hoof.
Correct. Yeah. As you get away from normal, Palmar angle would be anywhere from 3 to 6 degrees on that bottom hoof angle to the ground. Anything lower than say 3 degrees, we call a low Palmar angle, or a flat Palmar angle is parallel to the ground, and a negative Palmar angle, which is actually falling, drooping backwards. Whereas if anything above like 6 degrees is considered a high Palmar angle. So what we can do, and there's various ways, and they're different for, different, which extreme you're on here. With a low Palmar angle, which is, I think, one of the biggest problems that you see, you can do some type of frog support to help kind of boost that. Depending upon, again, every one of them is different, some type of properly placed heel wedge can help. But again, properly placed. If you don't place these correctly, you actually create more of a problem. And often the shoes are too short when they do this. And now you've created a fulcrum that the horse is actually falling backwards on even further, making that Palmar angle that you think you're boosting up, you're actually making it worse because the fulcrum is too far ahead of the downward force of the leg. So it's kind of tricky. You really have to pay attention to what's going on before you start putting wedges on these horses. But some type of frog support, certainly shortening the toe, whether it be by trimming and using shoe modifications like a rolled toe, all is ways we work on this.
So what about the horse with the club foot? I mean, I'm sure that a pretty picture would be to just whack up that heel, but that's going to cause a lot of problems.
Well, you can do that. And that's, again, a lot of confusion on this. You can take that heel off because when you have these excessively high heeled club feet, that heel is not going straight down. It's migrating forward. Uh-huh. And so again, you've got a fulcrum that's in the wrong place underneath the leg. And so if you trim all the excess heel off, and again, there's guidelines to do that with that, only a professional should be doing. Then you have moved that base of support back under the leg, and that's where you can put a wedge also because now you have a lot of tension on the deep flexor tendon. Mm-hmm. So you remove the excess heel, and then you replace it with a wedge, and that sounds, well, why would we do that? But it's where the base of support is that's important, not the fact that we have a wedge on or not. If the base of the support is further back and supporting the leg, there's too much tension on the deep flexor without the wedge pad. And so in some of these horses, if you do this over time, you can grow a better hoof on that foot and it won't be as extreme. It may be somewhat more normal over time. So that's why you don't want to, you take the high-low horse, that usually has a negative Palmar angle on one foot and a steep Palmar angle on the other, you don't want to make these feet match.
Mm-hmm.
You want to work on each one of them separately.
Now, this sounds like something that a guy advertising his farrier services on Facebook, may not know. Like, is this common farrier knowledge, or does this require a more extensive education?
Oh, definitely more extensive education. And I just went in a nutshell what we may do, but what we actually do is more complicated.
Right.
And there's a few other versions of it, and it takes a little experience to, do it in a way that's helpful for the horse.
So how can I make sure that I'm finding a good, properly trained farrier that would say I have a club foot or it's something? How can I make sure that the person I have knows what they're doing?
Well, the simple method is word of mouth. Satisfied clients that have used this individual and have had problems dealt with. Usually, testimonial type stuff is always probably the best way of finding people, who they can give references to. I've worked on this kind of horse successfully. And then I'm a member of the American Farriers Association as well as the American Association of Professional Farriers. And they both are very, very big on this type of continuing education. So anybody who has put themselves into this category has spent some time learning about what they're doing more than just nailing a shoe on. So that's quite often a very good reference right there, that if you have someone who's a member of these associations.
Awesome. Fantastic. So again, that's AFA and AFPA, I think is what you said.
The
so
AAPF.
AAPF. Sorry.
They both have very good websites.
Fantastic. Well, again, Steve, as always, thank you for coming on, and thanks for coming on such short notice and delivering this speech. I think it's so important. I mean, this is the foundation of what our horses are based on, no hoof, no horse. So these angles are very important. Glenn, are you starting to understand a little bit about what we're talking about, or are you not
I
paying
need
attention?
pictures, Steve. I need you to show me pictures.
Yeah, pictures. As I was asked to do this, I was wishing I could have a chalkboard,
a slideshow,
draw some of this for you. But I think people, in closing, I think people are too hung up on the hoof angles, and don't understand the Palmar angles, which they should actually be worried a lot more about than what the front hoof angle is. And we see a lot of people wanting to make sure you put a hoof gauge on and make sure they're the same, and what's his angles and all that. And a lot of that stuff really doesn't mean that much compared to what the Palmar angles are and the orientation of the coffin bone.
So if you want to see your farrier sweat, ask him about the Palmar angles of your horse the next time they're there and see what the reaction is.
And if they don't sweat, then you got a good one.
That's
perfect.
Right.
Well, if they understand, they're thinking of that rather than just the outside of the foot.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah.
And it's a really educational Facebook page. Cornell Farrier Program has a Facebook page. Go search for that. And Steve is always on there posting and doing some really kind of interesting cases and amazing things. So it's Steve Kraus, Certified Journeyman Farrier at the Cornell University College of Veterinary Medicine, the Farrier Program instructor. Thank you so much, Steve. And we look forward to talking to you again soon.
Anytime. Just let me know.
Thanks, Steve.
All right.
Appreciate
Thanks.
it.
All right, guys. See ya.
Bye. And he is great. He does mean anytime. He's been coming on our show for years. And I mean, I think what you said, Jen called him last night.
Yeah.
Like, okay.
Our other vet didn't show up. So we had to do last minute. He always is good about that. And talk about a topic. I don't think we've ever talked about Palmar angles before.
Well, that about wraps it up. Thank you again to our sponsor today, Wintec Saddles. You can just Google Wintec Saddles and find out more about it, or go to your local tack shop and say, hey, let me look at your Wintec saddles. Make sure to have all of your favorite Horse Radio Network shows with you wherever you go by downloading the free Horse Radio Network app for your iPhone or Android. Just go to your app store and download it today. It's free and easy to use. If you don't know how to do that, find someone who does. There's lots of folks out there. They're usually under the age of 12. And that about wraps it up. This is Coach Jen, and until next time, go ride your horse. The Horse Radio Network and the Horse Radio Network hosts are not responsible for statements made by guests on the Horse Tip Daily. Please use your own judgment when listening to the tips on this show.